Hero podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Holl, and it's a quick episode this week that is either a day late or a full year early, depending on how you look at it. It's a brief conversation with Guinness Brewery Ambassador Colm. Every year in the lead up to St. Patrick's Day, the famed Dublin Brewery, owned by Diageo, works hard to remind people that they should be drinking the dry Irish Stout on nitro. Every year, it seems they do a New York media tour, trying to get in front of radio, TV, print reporters to talk about this history of the beer, the flavor, and its overall importance. I've participated in a number of these interviews in the past, most recently with Fergal Murray, who held the title of Guinness Master Brewer. Those were lively conversations over pints in our younger days. So I haven't had the chance to do one of these in a while. And to get the lay of the land on Guinness, and this time around, it was a virtual conversation and not over pints. And this was recorded in the lead up to this year's holiday. And by virtue of new podcasts released every Wednesday, you're getting it the day after. No matter what you drank yesterday, or if you celebrated or not, there is likely no avoiding Guinness. And I hope this offers a little context. Here's our conversation. So I was going back through my notes, and it seems like almost every year, Guinness has a big presence in New York leading up to St. Patrick's Day. And I remember, hanging out with Fergal Murray a couple times in the lead up. I don't know if you all are doing this in other cities as well, but what's the importance of New York to Guinness?
Well, I think Guinness is very much an Irish success story. And I think it's very much a global brand as well, and it probably is the reason why we're still brewing after, over a quarter of millennia. So in terms of, I suppose, its reach, I kind of think it kind of rhymes with the Irish diaspora. And obviously, the Irish community is such a huge part of the DNA of New York. So it kind of stands to reason that it will be an Irish success story that resonates with the Irish community first and foremost, but not exclusively. St. Patrick's Day of itself, as far as I would regard, would be something that's not exclusively for Irish people, although it obviously is very much a kind of a celebration of all things Irish, but it also extends to friends, neighbors, and that. So I suppose it kind of makes sense that you have this kind of great story about an Irish success, and I suppose it makes sense for that Irish community in New York that has built the city into what it is today. I mean, even going through my notes, John, actually, before coming up here, I was looking at some of the old records from the early 20th century from our tasters. And the thing about Guinness and the archives is that, for such a long time, we have been assiduously note-taking, which is a fantastic deep well of knowledge and sources and recollections that we have from our tasters. And you just read through like the New York records and you can see all the different names. You can see like the amount of Kilderkins that went to Poughkeepsie, for example, and you can see that someone was transported up the Erie Canal. And again, that kind of resonated with me as well. It's there's a lot of Irish actually were involved in the construction of that canal. So, it's coming like full circle on some of the little sort of strands of that Irish story. So that for me would be my take on the connection with Guinness and New York, and obviously
Yeah.
other Irish American cities like Philadelphia and Boston, of course.
Um, I don't know if there is another brewery or specifically, brand of beer that is more synonymous with a holiday than Guinness and St. Patrick's Day. And I'm wondering about one, the privilege of that, but then also sort of if there are any, pitfalls of, being associated with one holiday, and obviously Guinness is popular year round. But for, one day, the sole focus, and what are the other 364 days like, outside of it? So first just sort of I guess the privilege of being associated with this, but then what the rest of the year looks like.
Sure. Well, I think that kind of ties in with the weight of expectation on such a big brand like Guinness that people expect in terms of quality. So, in terms of let's say the pressure to brew something that is consistent, because really, as you know, John, like the art of consistency, sorry, the art of brewing is the art of consistency. It's all about brewing the same product day in, day out, year in, year out, with very inconsistent materials. I don't know if you've ever visited Ireland, John. Have you been to Dublin to see us?
I have years ago, but yes.
Yeah, so like you'll be familiar then with the quite erratic and capricious nature of our weather in Ireland. And obviously, that has a knock-on effect on our barley. So again, you're always tweaking the method to make sure that you get the same product out the bottom end. But in terms of the pressure to deliver, because obviously our signature beer, when people think about Guinness and Paddy's Day, they think really about one beer, which is the Guinness Draft Stout. Now, that's one of many beers that obviously we brew, but it is our most popular one. It is a
Sure.
nitro beer. And nitro beers, by their very nature, are demanding that there's a lot of criteria to get right in terms of your two-part pour, in terms of the temperature, in terms of the correct gas, in terms of your glass maintenance, etc. So that kind of ties into that, meeting that expectation to get that perfect pint. Because if you take out one little bit of that criteria, the whole kind of house of cards falls, if you like, in terms of that. So there's one way of getting it right, and there's 100 ways of getting it wrong. So I don't know if that answers your question, but like in terms of like the expectation to deliver, for nitro by its very nature, it does have these very sort of hard and fast kind of rules that you have to adhere to make sure that you're delivering 365 days a year. But obviously, St. Patrick's Day more often than not.
You brought up the two-part pour, and obviously, on normal bar days of places that care about Guinness Stout, they're going to follow those rules. I don't know if I've ever actually seen it done the right way in New York bars on St. Patrick's Day itself, because it's a volume game. So, what do you say to those bars that don't do the two-part proper pour? As you say, it's a house of cards. Um, are we getting lesser Guinness when the bars aren't doing it the right way on the biggest Guinness day of the year?
Well, I wouldn't, admonish all of those great publicans that dispense the Guinness brand, but I would say that they are missing out, number one, on certainly the spectacle of and the kind of like the theater of pouring a pint for that two-part pour, which is not just solely theater, by the way. If you were to pour it in one fell swoop, which I don't see that often, but I'm just saying in the case of if that head height is going to be too high, it's going to be too much of a gas breakout, in one fell swoop, and that's obviously going to affect the head height, which we would recommend as being between 12 to 18 millimeters. So yeah, we would be pretty much we wouldn't really compromise on that. Not to say that everybody's doing it. We can't be everywhere, at the same time. But certainly we are making huge inroads of late, particularly like YouTube videos and our Guinness quality in terms of getting that message around in terms of the temperature, the two-part pour, and everything else that I mentioned earlier on. So that's what I would say on that. That
Okay.
you're kind of compromising it if you're not adhering to it.
You mentioned the theater of it, and I firm believer that, even with all of the iconic advertising campaigns and the YouTube videos and the outreach from your PR firms and all of that, the best advertisement for Guinness is always if I see one properly being poured at a bar, and I get thirsty for it. As we've seen drinking habits change in the last couple of years, and people aren't going out to bars in the same way that they used to, and certainly younger generations. What's the challenge for Guinness to introduce itself to a new generation of drinkers that might not be in the same places that, we were when we were coming up.
Sure, sure, sure. Well, obviously, modern life is quite complicated, and people have very heavy schedules, where it be at home or at work or whatever the case may be. And this would only be one of the key reasons why we've obviously fully embraced the non-alc market with
I'm
our
glad you
Guinness
brought that
Zero
up. Yeah.
brand. Yeah, yeah. In the last few years, we've seen a huge push on that in Dublin. In fact, the brewers were telling me it's around about 5% of what we brew now in Brew House 4. So again, you got the school run early in the morning, or you want to maybe catch up with friends, at lunchtime while you're in the office or whatever, and you don't want to make your life any more complicated than it is. So yeah, we're seeing a huge response to that. So I would say that is how the Guinness brand is meeting those shifting sands, if you like. Yeah.
Um, so 5% of what's coming out of Storehouse 4 these days. Does that surprise you? That number? Good, bad, and different?
No, no, it doesn't surprise me in the slightest. No, no, no. It's been a huge success in actual fact, and I think it kind of, and I would say this, with the utmost humility, but it is, to my mind, leaving a lot of other brands, let's say, to the side. And I think, and this is what I'm hearing, from the visitors in the store, as people I meet from day to day, is that they really, really compliment Guinness on the mouthfeel and the body of it, and that texture, because it's such a huge part of what Guinness Draft Stout is all about. And sometimes it can be where non-alc beers kind of fall, where you have that kind of lightness, you have that sort of lack of body, lack of definition. But I mean, we've spent the best part of a decade, really, really honing in on that particular market. We didn't want to do it on a whim. We wanted to give it its best shot. So we've been trying for a very, very long time on that. But so it's gratifying to hear that we've kind of hitting the marks that maybe some other non-alc beers might be missing. And I say that with the greatest degree of humility. But that's what I'm hearing. So yeah, it's been a fantastic response. Absolutely. So it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of, I know the term zebra striping of having a full strength and then a non-alc, and then alternating is catching on more and more, and
Yeah.
I'm certainly participating in that. But you brought
Yeah,
up
me
some of the
too.
other beers that, I mean, you all just don't make one style of beer. Um, what are the challenges that Guinness has of engaging consumers on something that is not, nitro dry Irish stout, either alcoholic or NA. I mean, I think of foreign export stout as a wonderful go-to that I still enjoy when I can find it. But when, I mean, the name of the brewery is also the one beer that people think of. Um, what are the challenges for the other beers in the portfolio?
Sure. Yeah, we realize everybody in the world is not a Guinness drinker. So, starting around about 10 years ago, in actual fact, at our home in St. James's Gate, we actually opened up our small experimental plant, which is literally 5 minutes walk around the corner from the brewery, and also the storehouse as well, the tourist attraction, which is called Guinness Open Gate Brewery. And that was basically using the small scale brewing equipment that we had. Obviously, some of it is still used for experimentation, zero being one a good example of that, but also as well to basically start launching beers and styles that are not associated with the Guinness name. So like red ales, for example, barrel aged porters, a few, Paddy's weeks ago, a few years ago, we actually did a potato and shamrock ale. So, we have that mantra at Open Gate. Whatever we get to dream up, we get to brew up. So, with the Guinness name, we can introduce people, or at least cater for people who are not necessarily, Guinness draft stout drinkers. And that idea has really, really flourished. And we've taken it to Baltimore, Maryland, as you're probably aware, also
Yep.
Chicago in latter years. And also just last December, we opened up another one at arguably the home of Porter, Covent Garden in London. So, yeah, we've seen a huge, huge response with that. So again, we can kind of take that name and we can kind of drive it down different avenues, if you like.
Sure. Um, I imagine, again, going through my notes, there's some fun stats that you all have pulled about how many pints are consumed on St. Patrick's Day and uh, bars and all of that. What are the fun numbers associated with Guinness and St. Patrick's Day this year, as you know them?
On St. Patrick's Day, I'm not sure. I'd have to get back to you on that, John, in terms of the volume that we have, and I will genuinely get back to you on that one, in terms of the numbers. In terms of the day-to-day stats, and obviously we're working at critical mass, if you like. We're working at ramming speed on the way up to Guinness, the lead up to St. Patrick's week, and obviously that is connecting to Brewhouse Stream 1, which is a 950 hectoliter operation. And we can do anywhere between 11 to 12 batches a day.
Wow.
So I think at maximum speed, we can basically brew 24 pints a second, believe it or not, which is just a bonkers statistic to get your head around. But
Yeah.
in terms of Paddy's Day, I'm not really sure. I think it's something like 4.3 million pints. Yeah, I think it's something like 4.3 million pints. And the reason why that number resonates with me is because on in the Guinness Storehouse we have a pint glass. And you've been to the storehouse yourself, John, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're going in at the start, and you'll see that the pint glass, it basically encompasses the inner frame of the building itself, and that holds 14.3 million pints. And I'm pretty sure that that actually signifies not just 3 pints for everybody in Ireland, but also as well that's the general daily consumption of Guinness. Obviously, St. Patrick's Day, it's going to be a lot. It'd be a lot different. I think it might be something like four times that, probably in the region of about 13 million pints, maybe up to 15. So again, I'll get back to you on the statistics on that, but I would say, yeah, it'd be around about four times that, probably about 14 million on the day.
Um, I get this question in my profession quite a bit, but the best beer you've ever had and all of that. But
Mm.
there's always the argument of where to get the best pint of Guinness outside of the brewery experience. For you, I'm not saying best, but for you, outside of any of the company owned locations, where would you encourage somebody to go to enjoy a pint of Guinness that has some meaning behind it?
Well, I would say for the best quality Guinness, go to a place that's renowned for its Guinness, and that kind of stands to reason because obviously and there'll be generally Irish bars, obviously stateside, which would have a decent throughput, and with that obviously comes that guarantee of freshness that is constantly flowing through the lines, and that basically guarantees the freshness. Plus, as well, you would imagine you have trained staff. Now, you might disagree with me on that, but in terms of like giving you the right, the correct pour, and as I said,
Oh,
falling
I'm
into
I'm not
line and
saying
all
that
those
people aren't doing
rules.
it right, but on St.
Yeah.
Patrick's Day, and I had this conversation with Fergal
Mm.
years ago of just it's unrealistic to believe that any publican, if they're slammed, is going to be doing the 119 seconds just to meet volume. That's all I meant. Yeah.
Right, 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 right. Okay, well, I mean, I would challenge that, and maybe if you were to go to Dublin, for example, which is obviously a city, I know very, very well, people can more than meet that particular challenge, let's say, in terms of dispensing a pint with the proper
Okay.
two-part pour. There wouldn't be any there wouldn't be any qualms there. And I think we have something like 500,000 people that come to the St. Patrick's Day parade or the St. Patrick's Day festival in Ireland itself. So again, it would depend on the establishment. Really would. It really does
Okay.
depend. But yeah, if you're
But
not doing the two-part pour, you're not doing it right in my book.
is there one specific place that you would hope people would get a chance to go and visit to have a pint of Guinness that's not a company location?
Um, Off the top of my head, I wouldn't give any particular personal endorsements. I mean, it's far too many to be quite honest with you. I mean, I've had great pints in Madrid. I've had great pints of Guinness in Frankfurt. Tremendous pints, in in Canada, for example. So I wouldn't really be tied to any particular place. What I would say is that if you go to a place that takes that extra care, that gives you the lovely dome, gives you the two-part pour, and is renowned for, the volume of Guinness, that's the key. But to single out one particular establishment, I think that'd be unfair to all the other ones.
Uh, for those headed out on St. Patrick's Day, I know everybody has their own particular toast that they like to give, but what's yours when you raise a pint?
Oh, Sláinte mhath chairde. So that's Irish, obviously. So
Yep.
sláinte, as you well know, John, is health in our native language.
Yep.
Sláinte mhath is good health, and Sláinte mhath a chairde, which is chairde is Chairde, is friends. So Sláinte mhath a chairde.
I
You can
like that.
also say Banach Nína Féile Oraibh Galéir. I can get that sent out to you. You can write that out for you if you want me to email that on to you. That's basically the blessings of the festival to you all. Banach Nína Féile Oraibh Galéir.
Where did you have your best pint of Guinness? Tell me about it. You can reach me anytime via email. It's John Holl, that's JOHNHOLL, at allaboutbeer.com. Make sure you join the This Week in Rauk Beer group on Facebook or follow at TW Rauk Beer on Instagram. Upload your photos, join the conversation. You can support us by visiting allaboutbeer.com/support, where you can find all of the information on how to do that. And when you're at the website, check out new content as well as the archives, and you can find links to follow All About Beer on social media. If you like smart audio content, a reminder that All About Beer has a separate podcast channel. Search and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Listen to shows like Brewer to Brewer, which is now a weekly show, the All About Beer podcast with them, Sutter and Don Tess, and One Iconic Beer, our new podcast on that channel, hosted by author Jeff Allworth. Steal This Beer still has new episodes every Monday. The BYO Nano podcast comes out on the 15th of every month. As for this show, Nate Schweber did the music, Jeff Quinn designed our logo, and I'm John Holl. New episodes release every Wednesday, and that's when I'll be back again to drink beer and to think beer.